Hi, welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Had a few little technical glitches, but I'm glad to be on with Mr. Andrew White, who is running for WISD School Board Place 4. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you, DV. How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry for the glitches. I apologize. That is technology. But I wanted you to go ahead and kind of introduce yourselves to the parents of WISD and just let them know who you are.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you for your service, DV. My dad's a Vietnam veteran, so I have much respect for the veterans. Thank you all for what you do to protect us.
I appreciate that,
So
sir.
yes, I moved to Waxahachie in 1998 to attend Southwestern Assemblies of God University. There I was an English major, graduated in 2002, went on to get my master's at Dallas Baptist University. I taught 10 years high school English in DeSoto. And then in 2013, I moved to Dallas ISD and taught at Townview Magnet Center. And while in Dallas, I've done professional development presentations. I worked in curriculum writing. I worked at central office as an instructional lead coach. Now I'm currently an administrator at a high school. I've been doing that for 3 years. So I'm married, have two daughters. My oldest daughter graduated last year from Global High School here in Waxahachie. Go Wolves! And she is currently enrolled at Texas A&M College Station. And my youngest daughter just turned 13. So both of those young ladies keep us very busy.
It, and they tend to do that. So I like to thank every candidate that comes on. I thank them for wanting to serve their community, because this politics stuff is not an easy thing to do. It's a rough and tumble thing, and it could get bad. So what made you want to run to be a school board member?
So I've been asked that question a lot lately. You're currently an administrator, so why would you want to run for school board? I think all of us would agree that Waxahachie has undergone so many changes over the last few years with all the growth and people moving here. So one of the big challenges we have in our public school system is how do we implement systems to the scale at the speed at which students are coming to our district. And so to me, I see the expansion of buildings, and I was a proponent of propositions A, B, and C. I voted no to D for the athletics, but I see that there is a huge need right now to support the school district and bringing on the right people to implement systems when it comes to academics, teacher recruiting and training, but also talking about discipline and those sorts of things that are really impacting the day-to-day operations in the classrooms.
And there is a lot going on in those classrooms. Do you have kind of a background in education?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. I taught high school English for 16 years. I'm still passionate. Some days I tell my teachers I miss being in the classroom and having those discussions. Being a former English teacher, I love literature and I love writing. But yes, sir. Taught 16 years. Have much respect for teachers. It's a lot different nowadays, brother. After COVID, things have definitely changed for counselors, administrators, bus drivers. It's a different world the educators are faced with every day. And so one of my goals of running for board is to implement systems to recruit and retain educators. We're losing educators here in Waxahachie like we are in other places. But my heart
Right.
and focus is here in Waxahachie and supporting our teachers and teachers' aides and staff members.
We're definitely going to talk about teachers because there is a shortage going on. But what I'd like to ask you, what is your educational philosophy, and what about that would you bring to the board?
Yeah, so I think as a board member, my job is to approve budgets, to ask questions, to approve policies, to come alongside the superintendent and support the superintendent with the superintendent's initiatives, but also to hold the superintendent accountable. If elected, the taxpayers are expecting me to represent them, not to represent my own interests or the interests of my friends that may have businesses here in the community, but it's to represent the voters. And that's what I want to do. I want to get in here and work hard for the voters. I've been going to board meetings for almost 5 years, asking tough questions. And so if I'm on the board, it's going to give me more of an opportunity to really dig deeper and hold people accountable and to give the taxpayers what they want. And that is a academic excellence. And they also want their students to be supported and protected when they are at schools.
Yes, and I'm definitely going to cover security. Um, Transparency. Transparency is key when you're sitting on that board because parents should know what's going on with their school district. What are your thoughts on transparency?
Well, I'll tell you this right now, DV. I believe I'm the only person, including even current board members. Just the last 2 weeks, I've requested um, I did an open records request to find out all the businesses in Ellis County that have won bid jobs with the current bond package to make sure there's no conflicts of interest. I know that's been a concern for people in the past, having conflicts of interest. And so the district, they did provide me with almost 90 pages of checks. And I've taken the time to go through all the companies that have been utilized here in Ellis County. And I support our local businesses. I'm glad that they're getting jobs. I just want to make sure that we don't have conflicts of interest with board members and companies here in Ellis County. And so that's one way that I'm going to be transparent is I'm going to ask these questions and I'm going to present that information to the community so they know what's going on behind the scenes. I know that's a big concern for many people is they sometimes don't know what's going on. They don't maybe know what questions to ask. And so part of my job is to be transparent with the community and let them know what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak.
There's budgets are getting getting ready to roll into budgets, and there seems to be an indication that our local schools are going to be having problems with their budget, running in a deficit, having to make tough choices. If you're elected into the school board, you're going to be reviewing this budget and probably voting on it. What are your thoughts on how you should manage the budget every year? And if approached with cuts, what cuts are acceptable to you?
Yeah. So, in case the viewers don't know, our neighbor right up the street, Midlothian, they just announced that they have a $6 million deficit, and they're having to have tough conversations now. Here in Waxahachie, there is going to be a public board meeting on March 18th. So I encourage as many people to attend or to get that stream later on so they can watch. I don't want to jump the gun. I've gotten a little bit of information from the district, but there are some very concerning numbers that are going to be coming up. To me, I think the district, not I think I know what the district needs to do, and that's what most community families in our communities are doing. That is looking at their budget and figuring out what do we need to cut. What are some things that we don't need, so we can keep gas in the car, keep food on the table, keep watching our Netflix shows or whatever it might be. But there are some things that we are going to have to cut out. No one likes to talk budget cuts, but that's the reality. As a board member, I want to keep people employed. I want to keep teachers employed, and I want to make sure that we're taking care of all of our staff members. DV, just last year, just so people know, taxpayers and even staff members that may not know here in Waxahachie, every teacher received, I believe it was about a $750 Christmas bonus, which hey, I'm all for taking care of our people. About three that cost the district a little over $1.5 million, if I remember my numbers correctly. 350,000 of that came out of the general budget. The rest of that money was pulled from the ESSER funds that were provided from the government during COVID, but the ESSER funds are now dried up. And so my concern is with a decline in enrollment. I hope we can talk a little bit about that later, because a lot of people aren't talking about that. And a lot of people don't know that our enrollment in Waxahachie is actually declining. That's a major concern, but I want to
Yeah,
look at
we're going to discuss that.
yeah, I want to cut out some things that we may not need to take care of our people.
Right. And it's there's serious when you run into a budget deficit and there's indications in the school district like Midlothian with the 6 million, there's some tough choices that have to be made, and that can influence your children and how they learn, their classrooms, their teachers. There's a lot that could go in there. I'm going to ask you one last financial question and then just kind of move on, and that is about taxes. For those of you that don't know, in Texas, your school board is the major taxing entity on your mortgage. Then comes the city, then comes the county. So the chunk of your very tough taxes that you got to pay on your mortgage every month, that's determined every year when they set the tax rate. So that affects you directly. A school board affects you directly. So I wanted to know, with a lot of people, saying they're hurting, a lot of people paying a lot in taxes in their houses. What are your thoughts on the taxing, and what is your philosophy when you come up on voting on the tax rate?
Yeah, so I do want to give a shout out to the school district. We are at the current lowest tax rate we've had in many years. The current rate, I believe, is basically $1.17. Uh, but about 75 cents of that is going to pay off the interest on the loans. The rest of that goes to the maintenance and operations budget. But we also know that home valuations are increasing. So what I want to advocate for as a board member when I'm elected is if these values keep increasing, which I don't see why they wouldn't, we need to really work to decrease that tax rate. I read comments every day, like some of you might, on social media about people having to move or having to sell their home. They're struggling to pay their taxes, and so I want to make sure that we're doing all we can to lower that tax rate as long as we can maintain a healthy budget, which means we may have to cut out some stuff because I want to make sure that people that want to live in Waxahachie can afford to live in Waxahachie.
And that is a major concern. So going into educational issues, there were there there were problems. Of course, we're past the pandemic, but there was problems with learning loss, and there was kids that fell behind, and Waxahachie is improving in some areas on that. But what are your thoughts on that, and what would you like to see the district do better with educating our children?
Yes, sir. And I years ago during COVID, I even went to the board and I gave a speech that I was going to make sure that my daughters were in school that first day. That back then it was Superintendent Dr. Kane when she said she was bringing all the kids back. And so thankfully here in Waxahachie, we didn't shut down our schools like some other districts shut them down for a long time. DV, one of my big concerns as a current educator here in our community, 51% of our third graders are at grade level on reading. People can look this up if you go to Google and you type in TAPR. That's the Texas Academic Performance Report, TAPR. You can search by district, and you can also toggle down and search by campus if you want to know how your current campus is doing. But 51% of third graders are at grade level with reading. 42% of our fourth graders are on grade level for mathematics. 28% of our seventh graders, if you look at our three junior highs, 28% are at grade level on math. So, DV, you take 10 kids out of any classroom at one of our junior highs, and 7 of them are below grade level in mathematics. That is a major concern. Part of that is COVID learning loss, but at some point, we got to quit making excuses and blaming everything on COVID. We have got to make sure that we are protecting the teacher's time in the classroom and not pushing products on them and not training them and not developing teachers. In this district right now, we don't have a plan to recruit and to retain quality teachers. But we keep pushing products and creating more stress, and we're losing teachers. We're losing
So
quality teachers.
So Andrew, what can, as a board member, what would you like to see, to, because you're seeing these teachers leaving the field. It's happening everywhere, and it's happening here. So what would you like to see, these teachers, what can we do to retain these teachers and take care of them?
Well, part of it goes back. A lot of this ties together, DV. I mean, you got to look at your budget. A brand new teacher can go to Mansfield and make $64,000, which is 25 minutes down the road. If they're not looking for the money, we're surrounded by districts now that are going to 4 days a week. And I'm not advocating for 4 days. I think the community needs to decide if that's what they want. But we have got to be more competitive with what we're offering our teachers. If we can't do it financially, if we can't do it with a 4 day calendar, then we got to figure out a creative way. And as a board trustee, I want to come alongside the district and start having these conversations with the community and with staff members. What do you need to want to stay in Waxahachie? I know just this week, surveys have been sent out to all staff members in Waxahachie, which is their annual survey. So I'm hoping that teachers, take the time to fill out those surveys and that they're honest. And I trust that the district will take that feedback and make changes. But this is an annual practice where they do surveys. So to me, DV, as a board member, it's creating opportunities for people to start voicing their concerns. and their ideas. This has to be a community school partnership where, as a board member, none of us all have the answer by ourselves, right? So I want people to have a input on what we can do as a district to keep these people here. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Part of that is just giving teachers the tools they need to be effective in the classroom. The job of central staff is, believe it or not, DV, the job of central staff is, yes, to create policies, to provide support and tools, and then get out of the way and let teachers do what they've been trained to do, and that is to teach, and let principals run their buildings the way they need to be ran. Central staff needs to get out of the way and let people do what they've been trained to do.
How important is it to involve the community and parents in the decision making of the board?
That's a fabulous question. If you look at the data in 2010, I know it seems like forever ago. A lot of our new people to the community in 2010, they might have been living in a whole different state. In 2010, the demographics of our school district were 14% African American, 33% Hispanic, and 51% Caucasian. If you look at the current data that's on the district website, the African American population has increased to 18%, give or take. Hispanic and Caucasian are both now neck and neck at 39% apiece. So the demographics in our school district are changing, and with that change comes the need to have conversations. And these are tough conversations, DV. But we've got to start having conversations as a community and listening to Caucasians and Hispanics and African Americans. We have got to work together because we are all in this together. It cannot be 7 board members that all look the same, that all think the same way, and have always done things the same way. We've got to start listening to other voices and give them a voice. Not give them a voice, but recognize their voice and create opportunities for their voices to be heard, to be valued, and to be acted upon.
The conversation of race has been big in recent years, and a lot of it negative, some of it positive, but it did affect our local communities and our schools. There was talk about CRT, and there was talk about DEI and pro or against it. I'm just saying that those conversations were happening.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know, because as a board member, you would set policy. So what are your thoughts on that, or in general, just diversity in general?
So let me share a little bit of discipline data real quick, BB, if you don't mind.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
we are currently on pace to have more discipline issues than ever before in our district. We currently, as of January 31st, we had almost 1,200 student ISS placements. 1,200 ISS placements. We've had almost 200 students placed at alternative school, and we've had just over. I'm looking at my numbers here. 199 that were suspended from school. And so when you look at all these discipline referrals, and these are the ones that were turned in, those students, when they're out of the class, again, that goes back to the academics. It affects their academic performance. But when you go to the alternative school here in Waxahachie, if you just go out there one day by Walmart and look out the window, you'll see that most of those students coming in and out are Black and brown. And so we have to ask ourselves, are the policies that we have in place, are they policies that are disproportionately impacting certain students? It's just a question that we need to ask. And so
That's
I think it goes back to, teachers are saying discipline's out of control. We have elementary teachers that are being kicked, hit, and bit,
that's unacceptable.
right here in our schools, and they're begging for help. And many times they're not getting the help because we haven't budgeted for the staff to come alongside our teachers to support them. And I'm talking about mental health. We got $5 million dedicated to athletics, and we have a very small percentage dedicated to mental health. So again, as a board trustee, these are just conversations that I think we need to have because we haven't had them for many, many years, to my knowledge, and I've been here since 1998.
There's I mean, that is a very deep subject to talk about, and we could go on all day on that one. But there are issues with these new schools coming into play. And I know that we kind of talked a lot of budget, but there's bonds that were proposed and actually passed, and these schools are going to be built. And as a as a board member, if you were elected, um, what is your responsibility there on making sure that that bond is implemented and it's implemented right?
Yeah. So going back to earlier, I did get 90 pages of checks because I want to see where the money is being spent. I've reached out to several members of the bond committee just to pick their brain on things that have been going on. I've reached out to the district numerous times, the finance department, just to get information. I've watched some of the bond committee updates because I really believe that this bond passed, and I let the school district needs to be allowed to do their job, and that's to hire contractors that are reputable. I know they did a lot of bids to get the best price, but we also want to make sure that we get the best quality. Cheap sometimes get you cheap products, and so to me, it's making sure that we're asking the right questions, right? How are we negotiating these prices? Are we ensuring that we're giving bids to multiple organizations and not funnel it all into a couple of big companies and stuff like that? And I believe that the district has done a real good job. I know Mr. Mott does a real good job at his board updates of letting people know what's going on with the bond. Everything is live streamed. Depending on where people live in our community, you can see the ground's moving, buildings are starting to be erected, and so it's awesome, but it's also kind of scary, DV, because like I said earlier, our numbers in Waxahachie are actually declining. Last year we had just over 11,050 students, I believe, at the peak, maybe a little bit more from what I recall. The last time I checked, about a week ago, we were about 10,900. So with all the families moving here, my concern is, why are people leaving? The people are leaving faster than they're coming in our schools. Just in the last year, DV, and a lot of people in our community don't know this because it's never talked about. We've had over 1,100 students withdraw from our Waxahachie public schools in the last year and a half. This time last year, we were just over 440 students that left the district, or they left their schools. Some of them may have moved out of state. Some of them might have transferred to another school. Some of them, there is a huge movement right now in Nellis County for homeschooling. But to date, so last year this time we were a little over 440. To date, we are over 550 already. So our discipline is escalating. Our people leaving the district is increasing. Teachers are leaving. Taxes, our evaluations are going up. That's why I'm running for the board. We've got to have new ideas and new ways of thinking. And so I'm excited to be here tonight, DV. I'm so excited to
There,
be having these conversations.
thank you, and I appreciate you coming on. I am going to have your opponent on as well, for those of you that want to see that too. Um, bullying. Bullying has become a major issue in schools, and there's constantly parents online saying, "Hey, my kid was bullied. Hey, there's some serious issues going on, and these kids are out of control in there." And I know we talk discipline, but I want you to kind of focus on bullying, because there's a lot of parents right now watching that know somebody, or probably had to deal with their kid coming home lumped up or sad because they got hit or they got talked stupid to or something. So, as a board member, how would you like to address bullying?
So I believe the first thing that people need to know, currently in our policy, our district code of conduct, that is approved by the school board members. So that's something that I'm very keen on, is that the board members have approved a policy where fighting and bullying are both level 4 offenses. So the policy states that they're equal. Fight and bullying are the same. But to date, from what I've looked at the discipline records in this district, not one student has been sent to alternative school for bullying, but we've had over, I believe, 150 that have been placed for fighting. So the policy that was adopted by the board says that bullying and fighting are equal, but there again is a lot of, I would call it discretionary placements, and nobody has been sent for bullying. I've talked to multiple parents, probably at least 15 parents over the last 6 months, that have taken their kids out of Waxahachie schools because their child was being bullied. And this ranges from elementary all the way up to junior high, and even one or two at the high school level, the ones that I've spoken to. and DV, they reach out to teachers, and the teachers are like, well, I'm reporting it to administration. They report it to administration. There's what we call a stay away agreement in public education. A lot of people don't know about stay away agreements, but if you're a teacher, you do, and if you're a counselor, you do, and if you're a parent of a child that's maybe been a bully or bullied, it is called a stay away agreement. And DV, basically what that means is these two individuals, typically is two people, cannot talk to each other. They can't be around each other. Whether it's social media or in person, they basically just leave each other alone, don't talk about each other. But there has to be teeth behind the stay away agreement. In other words, if it's violated, there has to be consequences to send a message that our children will not be bullied. But a lot of parents, that's one reason why they're pulling their kids out, because nobody wants to pay taxes to a school district to drop their child off to be harassed, intimidated, talked about, whether they're special ed or whether they look a certain way. Nobody wants to do that. So parents, you know what? I'll keep paying my taxes, but my child's not going there, and they take them out.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Now the ISDs, um, they get their curriculum from TEA, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but they get their curriculum and stuff from TEA, the state board of education, approved stuff, and it comes on down to the districts. But there are some things that the district can use for supplementals for instruction. And I've seen you vocalize online about curriculum. Can you speak to it real quick?
Yes, sir. This is a this is a very hot topic, really across the country. Again, there are parents in our community. I've talked to a few recently that they're very concerned about what we're putting in front of our children to read, and specifically, we're talking about the amplified curriculum. I know our district, they've taken out some of the controversial passages, which I commend them for that. I know our district has taken out library books. I know that's not a curriculum product, but just since we're on the subject, our
Mhm.
district has been pretty responsive, not as fast as I would hope, of taking out books that were pornographic in nature in our public school libraries. But going back to Amplify, I did a video last week on my Facebook page, Andrew White for Waxahachie ISD trustee, in case y'all want to check that out. And I talk a little bit more about the history of Amplify. And DV, we could talk hours on this, but basically, there are multiple products that districts can purchase. But for some reason, the state of Texas is really pushing Amplify on a lot of our public schools. They're not forcing us to take this product, but it's something that the state of Texas is promoting, which has a lot of educators alarmed about. Because I remember back in the day, some of you older teachers, older is probably not the best word, but y'all remember back in the day, we would get to choose from 15 or 20 different companies when we chose an English book. Every 10 years, we get adoptions, DV, in case you didn't know that. But every 10
Mhm.
years, the state there's a law that makes us adopt a new resource. And each year it appears, or every 10 years or so, it dwindles down. 10 years ago, you were down to 4 or 5 options. And now it appears that the state is pushing only Amplify. But there are other products out there. For some reason, our district has chosen to hang its laurels on Amplify. And my concern with Amplify is not so much some of the passages, because yes, that is a concern. But I'm just one person. I want the parents to look at the Amplify curriculum when their kids come home from these 4 schools right now that are using Amplify. I want parents just to read through some of the passages, and if they see anything that's concerning, that's when they need to reach out to their board members and let them know. Because I can have my personal opinions all day, but this is not about me, DV. This is about me representing the constituents and the voters. And,
Right.
and so I do hope that the district will keep its options open, because there are we currently have products, but for some reason we haven't put in the time and the training to utilize the products that we already purchased in the past. So that's the whole thing is a mess, DV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go on forever, but unfortunately, I got to start wrapping. The one thing I will say is that the issue that every parent that's watching right now, when you send your kid to school, you're thinking at some point in the back of your mind, is my kid going to be safe? There's been, I mean, absolutely evil demonic, call it what you want. There's been people butchering our children with violence. And the state did do something when it came out with putting an SR on every campus, and WISD has been proactive on that. What are your thoughts on school safety? There's a new program right now that actually can be put on the cameras, and it's an AI, and it could detect a weapon. I just found out about this today. I saw it on the news, and it could detect a weapon without doing major infrastructure changes to the current programs. And there's FBI training courses and stuff. Uh, what are your thoughts on that?
So DV, the job of educators used to be just to teach kids and get to know kids and kind of guide them and shape them to be successful, when they graduate out of high school. The stress that educators face nowadays is so much more than just that. It is keeping the kids safe. The number one priority of public educators today is to ensure when those kids are dropped off that they are as safe as possible. Many of us know that it wasn't but a week or so ago that a student in Midlothian was arrested. They found a gun in his vehicle, and he threatened to kill two teachers. That is the scariest thing for a community, not just for staff members, but for
And then a few days prior to that, some kid got busted because he was threatening to shoot black and brown kids, shoot up the school. There was another incident before that one that you're talking about, where they found a kid with a gun at the school at MISD. So yeah, it's local.
yeah, and just this year at the high school, I do know that there was one incident of a student that managed to get a gun into the school. Shout out to the Waxahachie administration and the police. They handled that situation perfectly, from what I've been told and what I understand. So I think DV here in Waxahachie, we have a great partnership with the Waxahachie Police Department and the Sheriff's Department of Ellis County, where and I don't know, I'm not privy to all the details, but as a board member, I want to hear the recommendations of law enforcement. And so, to me, as a board member, I can have my ideas, but I'm an educator. I'm not a law enforcement guy. But I do believe our district does get a lot of input from law enforcement, and they go based on their recommendations. And so that's what I would do is, hey, y'all tell us what we need, and let's try to find the money in our budget if the state's not providing enough of that, and let's do all we can to keep our kids safe.
What I found out is there's actually grants, and there was stuff in ESSER funds that you could use to harden schools. I mean, it's pretty cool. I was kind of diving into that today, but I wanted to turn to the audience questions, kind of a first for the Ellis Talker Show, because Mr. White expressed interest in answering your questions directly, not just this big ugly guy right here. So, um, first, I want to welcome Mr. Chris Wright, who is a Waxahachie council member. How you doing, Mr. Wright? Thank you for your question. And his question was, what is your history with MISD administration?
So, if I'm reading the question correctly, it, I'm guessing what is my history? I mean, I've reached out to the administration over the years. I'm going to answer the question. I hope this is what Mr. Wright is wanting to find out. I first got involved with Waxahachie administration years ago when Dr. Glenn was here, when we went through a rezoning process. And so I went to those rezoning meetings to ask questions because it was going to affect my children at that time. And then, of course, when Dr. Kane was here, I reached out to her to ask her questions because I wanted to bring back a long range planning committee, but I wanted the committee to be more diverse than what it was when Dr. Glenn was here. And she didn't want to bring that back for different reasons. But then when Dr. Hollingsworth came, I had expressed interest with wanting to, again, bring back this long range planning committee, and he did bring it back. And so another thing that a lot of people don't know is that, during COVID, I worked with several teachers over at Global High School. They were asking for ideas on how they could deliver their lessons asynchronously. And so I shared with some of the teachers at Global High School and even the principal then, Mr. Lynch, some different ways that they could deliver their instruction. And then just recently, I worked with some teachers here in the district, and I even talked to several principals trying to find out more about how their what the training looked like for implementation of effective lessons. And in those conversations, I discovered that yes, there's PLCs on the schedule across all campuses, but the PLCs look a lot different depending on which school you're at. And I also discovered that a lot of our newer teachers, through these conversations, really some of the new ones don't truly understand the effective components of a lesson, such as what does success criteria look like? You know, what does a demonstration of learning look like? And how is all this aligned? So those are just a few things that I've tried to do as a citizen over the last 4 to 5 years to try to work with the school the
So
best I could.
so that's like in the weeds of teaching though, like how they teach and how they function in the classroom, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, thank you for your question, Mr. Wright. And then Sarah Nichol had a question. How do you feel about punishing bad behavior?
So I think the key word here that we're looking at is the word punish. Um, I believe that, and I'm maybe Miss Nicole. I'm sure she probably has children, but I think it's we have to re-examine: are we punishing behavior, or are we wanting to redirect behavior? You know, the job of educators is to keep kids in the classroom as much as we can. Yes, there are times where behavior is out of control and teachers are not able to teach. And so, yes, that student needs to be removed from the classroom. But then what do we do with that student when they're removed? You know, do we send them just to the office, they get put in ISS, and then that's it? Or are we really working on correcting the behavior and identifying what's going on with the student? You know, if you've been a teacher for any amount of time and you get to know your students, when you have, let's say, 20 third graders in a room or 35 high schoolers, and you get to know these students, you realize that they're all coming from different backgrounds. You know, some of them go home and don't have food on the table. Some of them go home and don't have a father. Some of them go home and see the stepdad beating the mama. And so when you get to know these students and you start to see a connection between the behavior and their academic performance, and you as a teacher, it's hard because you're trying to teach this lesson and you're trying to move the class forward and you're trying to teach to the highest level, but then you also don't want to leave kids behind. And so, do students need to be held accountable for their behaviors? Yes. But do we have the systems in place to effectively address behaviors in our district right now? No, because our superintendent has even said we've had over 3,000 new students move here, I believe, in the last 3 years. And the systems that we have in place really are systems that were put in place back when we had 5 or 6,000 students. And so that is something that we definitely need to look at. But also, adults need to be held accountable, not just students.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of it starts at home and parents. There's been a big discussion in this country, and thank you, Sarah, for your question. There's been a big discussion in this country, you know, as of the last few years, that the proper role of the schools in the lives of the children versus the proper role of the parents in the lives of the children. And some people have expressed dismay by some of the things that maybe some educators have done inside the schools, and you know, there's been a lot of talk in that. And so this conversation about discipline is a double kind of thing, where the school has to have a place, the family has to have a place, but then there are some times when that family component isn't exactly intact, and you understand that. So, but you know, I'm going to leave it open for a little bit, for just a little bit for the questions.
Mhm.
But you were discussing about this. There was one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because we've talked about it a little bit, and that's special education. Special education kids don't get the awards. They don't have the fancy ceremonies. They don't have the big posts, you know, all over Facebook, and there, it's always a component of school that's underfunded.
Mhm.
Special education. So what are your thoughts on special education? And as a board member, how will you fight for those special education kids? And then one more thing on that question: a parent approach you, say, Mr. White, my child is not receiving the services they're supposed to get. Mr. White, my IEP, my individual education plan is not being followed. What can I do?
Right. That's like 5 questions, DV, wrapped in
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I mean,
I gotta wrap up.
no, you're good. I believe the first thing is, I just want to clarify. When I was a kid in school, like many adults that are my age, 45 or older, special ed was kind of put in a different part of the building. It was a room down the hall somewhere. They were away from everybody else. But now with our least restrictive environment, which I totally agree with, students that receive special education services, I don't really like calling them special ed kids, but they are students that receive special ed services. They're in all of our classrooms, and so with that also comes a lot of responsibility for teachers. And I think that goes back to the class size. If you have a classroom and you have 5 or 6 students in there that receive these services or 504 accommodations, teachers sometimes get overwhelmed with all the paperwork that already goes into their day, that there could be times where they forget certain accommodations. The problem with that is it creates frustration on the student and parents part, but it also creates an opportunity for a TEA investigation, Texas Education Agency, or possibly, if there's multiple violations, of a federal lawsuit. And that's the last thing we want in our school district, is for there to be litigation concerning special education violations. And then to answer that last part of that, because I know we're running out of time. To me, I'm really about the chain of command. And so if parents came to me as a board member and say, hey, my child attends the school over here, the teacher's not whatever, I'm gonna say, well, first of all, I do this every day in my job right now with students and teachers. Have you talked to the teacher? Have you talked to the teacher to give that teacher a chance to correct it? And if they say yes, but nothing happened, okay, well, have you gone to the assistant principal? There has to be an assistant principal that's responsible for that teacher, and just put it back on the parent to go through the proper channels. Now, DV, when that doesn't work, then that's when I'm going to advocate and start asking some tough questions. But the district needs to be at least given the opportunity for parents to work through those channels. But I do know in conversations with parents in our community that many of them have gone through some of these channels, and some of this goes back years, DV. It's not just current, but there is a
Mhm.
lot of frustration in our community where parents went through the proper channels, were told, "Oh, we're going to address that, or we're going to fix this," and change never happens. And to me, that's my big concern, is some of these changes don't take years. It's putting the right people in place and putting the right policies in place. And that's what I'm going to do when I'm elected.
And the as a as a father to a special needs child, actually two, I I understand how difficult that can get parents when you're advocating for your kid. And I mean, it's almost to the point where you need an attorney to advocate for special education. It gets really complicated. So I know the kind of the struggles that you went to. That's why I wanted to ask this board member candidate that question. Folks, if you have any questions, send them in. Otherwise, I'm going to let Mr. White go ahead and talk directly to you. I'm going to get my ugly butt out of the screen and let you talk to them, Mr. White.
Well, if Mr. Wright's still available, I want to make sure, did I answer his question, or was there something more specific that he wanted to know? Because if
No,
I'm asking for people to vote for me, I want to make sure that I'm answering their questions.
well,
I
I've gotten to know Mr. Wright throughout the years. Had him
don't
on the show a couple of times, so I'm sure that if I'm sure that if he had a follow up, he would send it. But I'm going to give you the mic to go ahead and talk directly to the parents and the people of Waxahachie.
Okay, thank you for. Just want to shout out, your school is your voice, your choice. My wife Brenda, thank you so much for making this sweatshirt. DV, this last month has been a fascinating experience. I never thought in my life that I would be a politician, but I've enjoyed so much getting to know people in our community. I've met people that I never thought I would meet. I've talked to many people from different backgrounds, from all over the country, that have moved here for different reasons. Waxahachie, make no mistake about it, when I ask questions and tough questions, It's because I want the best for this community. I want the best for the school district. And so some people, when I ask tough questions, they take it like, man, this guy, he doesn't like the school district or he doesn't. This is about making sure that Waxahachie ISD continues to be a beacon of excellence for academics. That's really my heart is academics. I love sports. Go Waxahachie boys soccer team and girls soccer. You are doing a fabulous job. And shout out to the basketball team. That was incredible watching their run this year. Uh, People, I just ask you over the next few weeks as you follow my Facebook page, Andrew White for Waxahachie ISD trustee. Listen to what I'm saying. This is not me. This is coming from conversations with people in our community. Am I a perfect candidate? No, there's no such thing as a perfect candidate. But if I can earn your vote, remember, early voting starts April 22nd. The general election is May 4th. I guarantee you that I will fight for you. I will ask questions of the administration. I will hold the administration accountable. If I tell you that I'm going to fight the lower taxes, I'm going to fight the lower taxes. If you go around this community and ask people that know me, hey, who is this guy, Andrew? They're going to tell you, well, he says what he means. I don't sugarcoat things. Like I said earlier, my dad was a Vietnam veteran. And he said, Andrew, as you get older, you're going to have to fight for what you believe in and you never back down. I will support our teachers 100%. I will advocate to give them the tools they need, the support they need, and then to get out of the way and let them do their job. I will advocate to take care of our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our front office staff. Our front office staff are so underpaid. I will fight for all employees, HVAC, maintenance. I will fight for all of you, but I will also fight for parents. Your children's being bullied. I want to make sure that they are protected. So again, Andrew White, place 4 trustee. I am the only candidate that has experience in public education, and I am not a yes man.
And sometimes that definitely, well, not sometimes, accountability is always needed. It is good to have, always good to have a good relationship with those people that you serve with. That's always good, but accountability is always important. So Councilman Wright came back and said, I was curious if you had children that attended WISD. If so, have you ever had occasion to interact with admin or just your current district?
No, sir. No. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for asking a second question. So my oldest daughter, like I said earlier, she graduated from Waxahachie Global High School. She she started out at Shackelford Elementary and worked her way all the way up through the school system here in Waxahachie and graduated. I've been a part of our schools for many years. My youngest daughter, she started out at Shackelford with Miss Schaefer. Go, Miss Schaefer! You're an awesome administrator. And then she went to Coleman. We had some issues at Coleman, and we transferred her to Howard Middle School. And DV, just to be transparent with the voters, I've had to pull my own daughter out of Waxahachie ISD public schools, and I never thought in my life I would have to pull my own child out of a public school system that I love, that I support, and that I fight for. But at the end of the day, my family comes first, and like every other parent that's had to pull their child out, it is a sinking feeling when you have to take your own child out of schools that you love so much. And DV, this is a conversation that many teachers in our district are having. They are scared to put their own children in our Waxahachie ISD public schools. And if you don't believe me, community, get out and talk to people that are in the trenches every single day. So this is not about me, DV. This is about me representing the people that want the best for their schools, but at the end of the day, the best for their children. Because at the end of the day, children and our family is all we got.
uh Andrew, I'm really grateful that you came on, and I'm grateful that you answered his questions. If you guys have more questions, make sure you go to his Facebook page, and he does little videos and he addresses different topics that affect the school, and you can look at those videos and you make your decision. My show is just about presenting these candidates and you deciding whether you're going to vote for them or not. That's how this works. And I am so grateful, folks, for your support and for even watching. I know this is your time, and you could be watching and doing so many things, but you're giving me your time. And I am so grateful for that. Thank you. Again, Mr. White, I wish you best of luck. I will be having his opponent on here soon. we're ironing out that date, and we'll have this conversation too. Can you stick around after the show?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, DV, and thank you all that were able to tune in. And God bless everyone.
Thank you.